And welcome back to class too. I've missed class. So I don't know. I don't know if he taught us this or I just thought of it afterwards. It's hard to know. But I got to thinking how in the Psalms we often talk about being in the depths of despair and then also coming from a narrow place. And just wanted to hear you kind of riff on the difference between those two and how we ascend out of those two places.
Yeah, that's a big theme. I think that's really profound. And I don't know if you've ever heard me talk that the tradition has two places or two traditional buckets of vocabulary to talk about also both difficult things, but also the experience of God. One is wells or depths or deep in the valley, and the other is heights, hilltops, sky. And as anybody who if you know anything about many different traditional cultures and religions, that contrast of depth and height is often used as an experience of life. I'm going to write this down though, because I want to hear from everybody else and I want to get back to this. Okay, so I'm going to write the depths of despair in narrow places. Yep. I'm going to hold on to that. I just want to let everybody else talk. Thanks for that, Robin. Very, very insightful. Jeremy. You're muted, Bubala.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
Congratulations, Mazel Tov.
Thank you.
I've been living with pride for you and for us ever since I heard about it.
Thank you.
And so excited to learn from you about what that experience will be. You talked about the Psalms relating to the holidays and the Psalms related to the days of the week. The Psalms related to the days of the week is a mystery to me, and I'd love to have that unwrapped for me sometime.
Good. The one that's obvious, of course, is the one for Shabbat, but the other is less obvious because that's the only psalm that actually mentions Shabbat, and that you've heard a lot about because we say it to all the, in the evening and the daytime on Shabbat. Thank you, Jeremy. I'm writing all this down. Okay, who's else? Shep.
Congratulations, Rabbi. That
Thank you,
is
Bubala.
awesome. Wow. I just have a stupid comment about the value of repetition. Watching the Olympics, these people do these amazing things. Took 1,000 times of practice and repetition to get to perfection. And also many people—
Probably a lot more than 1,000.
Yes, years. And the other thing is, I know we see movies, we like them. We see them a second time, we get more out of it. Yeah. And as you do the Psalms over, you see different things, you learn different things.
Definitely.
Repetition is good.
Yep. And as I've said, part of the power of repetition is also just you're bringing a different person. If you read the Psalms in one moment in your life,
right,
and then you come back to it at a very different moment, you're also a completely different person. So there's a lot of change happening, but it's very powerful to have this body of 150 chapters that remain basically the same, and you revolve around them. And the change factor is you.
Brilliant.
And the change factor is what has happened in your life or where you are. I mean, that's part of its, I think, its deep, deep power. Donna Gray. Hi, Donna.
Hi, Rabbi. Welcome back. Hope you had a great vacation.
Yep, I'll talk a little bit about it.
And big congrats. It's really an honor.
Thank you, it is.
So I think the biggest takeaway from studying with Rabbi Moskowitz, well, first of all, the depth and breadth of his knowledge, the way he's able to think of bringing different sources just off the top of his head is amazing. But you know about me that I found spirituality outside of Judaism. Yes. And so there's a certain way that spirituality is something that lives inside of me. And then I see Jewish ritual as not necessarily for me being about that. But what I saw from Rabbi Moskowitz, what I got maybe for the first time, is how deeply spiritual he is through Judaism, in a way that I connect to from outside of Judaism.
Uh-huh. Beautiful.
And so it made me realize that there's a mystical element to Judaism that, I hadn't been that connected to. And Hazan Hirsch, when she talked about how what he was saying was reminding her of Musar, it made me think that, maybe that's a connection that I might want to explore at some time. Is he into Musar, Rabbi
Yes,
Moskowitz?
he's been teaching one of the famous books of Musar every morning. I think he's on pause. I'm not sure if he's started that again. It will.
Next week,
This week?
next week.
Next week. He does 15 minutes of Musar every morning. There are several kind of foundational texts of the Musar movement, and he's been exploring one of them. We'll talk about this a little bit later, but he is going to be teaching during my sabbatical an introduction to Mishnah and Talmud that will be very deeply spiritual. And it's very, very rare for people who live in the non-Orthodox world to have access to a person like him at his level of learning. And it's going to be totally for beginners. He's been teaching a Talmud class for 10 people who have had some skills. And I don't know if Judy Hollander is one of them. I'm not sure if anybody else in that group is in this class. But they can tell you that by studying with him, they've learned things that they never, ever, ever thought was accessible to them. And so he's going to be teaching that introduction, which will have a lot of chavruta, or as he'll call it, chavrusa, which is, and the traditional definition of chavruta is two people studying together. But it's going to be a chance. And honestly, you will never, ever outside of CBST get the kind of opportunity that you have with him to study. So stay tuned for more of that. And it really is open. You will learn what it means to start learning in a really traditional Jewish classical direction. But you'll see his spirituality is infused not just with Musar. Technically, Musar for him comes out of the study of everything. So anyway,
it's taken me a little while to get beyond his exterior and what that represented to me, but I'm seeing beyond it now.
Spiritually, isn't that an amazing challenge?
And that's been growth for me.
Yep. Wonderful. Peter Klein.
Welcome back, Rabbi,
Thank
and
you, Peter.
Yashikoa. Congratulations. The 2 weeks were wonderful because it brought us towards a granular examination of these texts in different ways, different modalities that made me want to go back into Tanakh and go line by line in a way that I haven't since I was, 12, 13. But as we approached Elul and we...
Chef, globally, you got to stay. You get me seasick.
When we read the parsha of that week, which is the beginning of Devarim, which is horrific. Somehow or other, I had never really focused on that. And then to go into Tisha B'Av, where we experience what we inflicted, is something that I'm convulsed with. I don't know where to put those emotions.
Yep.
And going through our text, trying to find out if there's any mitigation. It's very difficult and wonderful at the same time. So I'm grateful for their teachings.
I don't know. I look difficult and wonderful for me. That's a fabulous review. That's what I think life is, right? Difficult and wonderful. That's the best. That's what I'm going for. Difficult and wonderful. It doesn't get easy, and
No.
I just hope it stays wonderful, right? Lori Cutman. And Lori, thanks for distributing the text.
Oh, you're welcome. I was impressed at how far.
And by the way, I love that wedding picture.
54 years and still going. Oh my God. So I was impressed at how far we've come as a group, because we did Psalm 137 a year ago. Some of us, a handful of us wrote versions and read them. And then to relook at it again this year with such a different eye and such a different way of analyzing and reading the Psalms, I was very touched at how much they mean to me now compared to a year ago. So I could see
wonderful. I feel like I hope that I'm enabling, or whatever the right word is, you know, a lifetime relationship with these Psalms, and they'll go way beyond stuff you've learned here, and it'll build on it, and this will be a deep, deep, deep foundation. Okay, a few more. Michelle Zalkin.
Thank you. Welcome back, Rabbi, and
Thank you.
congratulations.
Thank
I
you.
apologize for my name. I can't figure out how to rename myself on my new iPad.
Luckily, I know who you are.
I saw this in discussion about, somebody brought up about the Garden of Eden and stuff. And I wrote down, God's greatness is God's capacity to forgive, God's grace, and God likes to forgive, so I can be in partnership with God. And that God has an abundance of forgiveness. And on my spiritual path, that's really important for me. And that it was really interesting, the whole discussion about the Garden of Eden, that God kicked them out of the Garden of Eden so that they could figure out what went wrong, and so that they could improve, or we could improve, or I could improve.
Right.
I appreciated that.
It sure
Thank you.
changes, it helps to give you a different frame for looking at difficult things that happen in life, right? It's
Yeah.
profound. All right, Donna, your hand is still up. Does that mean you're saying, you and Jeremy? Sarah, you haven't spoken.
It's not up. I'll take it down.
Yeah, if you could take your hand down if you've spoken, just so I know. Sarah Siegel. Thank you, Donna. Thank you, Michelle.
Thanks. Welcome, Rab.
Thank you.
And Mazel Tov. Every time you go away, I get this petulant mood where I'm like, I only want to study with Rabbi Kleinbaum. I'm not coming. And I always come, and I always have a meaningful time. I want you to know that like I do this internal thing where I'm like, I'm skipping it, and I don't skip it. And I'm so glad I don't. And about Rabbi Moskowitz in particular, I also am so prejudiced and feel like I can't even stand the Ashkenazi accent, in typical life. And he's such a golden person. And it is a complete lesson for me. Like, I want so desperately for everybody to accept me exactly as I am, for my lesbian Jewish self.
Yeah.
And here I am, like, discriminating against, a guy that looks too ultra Orthodox to me, and too, speaks in a way that I don't appreciate historically. It's a lesson. So.
That's very profound. And I'm very grateful that listen, I promise you, as difficult as it is for any of us to stretch, imagine what it's like for him to be in our community. He's the only one. He's alone. He doesn't have anybody who matches him in his Jewish life. And he manages that with such grace and dignity, and so deeply appreciates us in CBST, even though on the same time it's lonely for him, right? How do you find a home? So I appreciate that, Sarah, so deeply. Marcia Melnick. Hello, Marcia.
Oops. Hi, Rabbi. Welcome back. We missed you, of course, and are very thrilled for you and your new honor and your new post. So there's this, to Sarah's point a little bit, and maybe to everybody, I guess the Psalms on some level also access the different ways that we all read them.
Yes.
And the different ways that the rabbis, whether it's Rabbi Rapport, whether it's you or Rabbi Moskowitz, your voices are all so different. And I love that. I love that this is that Judaism allows us to have all these different interpretations and to bring our own experience to what we're studying. That's opened up for me an appreciation of what we've been doing here by bringing in other rabbis' voices. So I love it.
I'm so happy to hear that, Marcia.
Yeah.
I so don't want to be a guru. That is completely against every part of who I am. I love having different rabbinic voices, different Jewish teachers, that we're a community that's exposed to a lot of different kinds of people. And ever since the internship, which was the first time, it was only in this context of, we didn't have other rabbis for a long time. For a long time, we only had other rabbinical students, and then we had some cantorial students. I wanted to raise them up as much as I could so that people would not see me as the only source of deep Jewish teaching. And there's a real danger in attaching too much to one person, you know, and also, and we know what happens in the world of that. And it's not, I don't have an appetite for it either, in either direction. So I'm thrilled that there are other strong, thoughtful, very different rabbis from whom we can all learn. I learned from Rabbi Rapport. I learned from Rabbi Moskowitz. These are people who I get a great deal from. So I'm thrilled that, and I know it is difficult because we have a rhythm and we have a structure and we have a way of doing things. So just shifting that is a little jarring, and I get that. But I'm so glad we've been able to make space for, and people are able to examine where it's uncomfortable and see what you can learn from that discomfort a little bit. And I'm thrilled. Okay, a couple more comments and then we're gonna go back. We're gonna keep going. Randy Saraclough, and how are you feeling, Randy?
I'm getting better slowly.
Yeah.
The infection, I think, is almost gone, and I just have to heal now. Thank you for
Yeah.
asking. So welcome back. I can't think of a better person that the president could have chosen for this
Thank you.
mission. So Mazel Tov.
Thank you very much.
I wanted to talk about Rabbi Rapport. She is an amazing. She has, obviously she was limited by the one day, as opposed to how we can go through 2-3 weeks of studying a psalm, but she has a great style. And I wanted to
Great.
out how when she leads services on Friday night, as she goes into the psalm for Shabbat, Psalm 92, she started this routine of meditation, this breathing, and how much it's meant to me. And it brings me back to this class.
Yeah.
Now, the connection between this class and the Kabbalah Shabbat services. I just wanted to say, although I love studying with you, I do learn something from everybody.
Fantastic.
And fear of being able to learn from everybody. So I just wanted
Fantastic, Randy. I'm so happy to hear
to know
that.
that.
And she
Welcome
now
back.
starts, this is the beginning of her 6th year at CBST. Isn't that remarkable? The beginning of August is all of our anniversaries. That's the Jewish professional start date. So I actually started 30 years ago at CBST, if you can imagine. So August, I think I started August 2nd or August 1st, I don't remember. Barbara Grindell.
And once again, congratulations, Rabbi. I've been telling my friends about it. Remember my rabbi I told you about? She got this great appointment. So I'm going to talk about a little bit about Rabbi Moskowitz and some of his quotes that hopefully we got correctly. But he did say something to the effect, when God forgives, there's a breaking and rebuilding in a stronger relationship. And what really stood out to me, though, is when someone wants to be forgiven, God's already there. You don't have to look for him. And that, you know, it was amazing. Once you get through dealing with the way he talks so fast, as if he's from New York, which of course he is. You know, I used to get accused of that myself.
Virginia, actually.
Excuse me?
I think he's actually from Richmond, Virginia.
Oh, because he talks, I think he wants to give the most information he can in the shortest amount of time.
But I think he was born and bred in Richmond, Virginia, if I'm not mistaken, but I don't
It was
know.
just this fast talking, but you have to really listen. And I was almost thinking about, and I still could do it, go back over the tape again to catch more pearls from him, because that's what I got. One other thing I want to just say, I think he said that sin was temporary insanity. Is there truth to that? I guess there must be, if he said it. If I wrote it, he said it, you know.
Interesting.
So
Well,
I'm leaving all that.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Betsy.
Hi, welcome back. I've missed you and I've loved the other teachers, and such congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Barbara just reminded me, one of the things that Rabbi Moskowitz talked about when he was talking about forgiveness that I had never heard that was so meaningful. He talked about asking for forgiveness 3 times. And after the 3rd time, if someone doesn't want to forgive you, it's like you've done everything you can. And what that means to find the forgiveness in yourself and let go. And I thought I've had different relationships over the years where someone's just not willing. And and there's a quality that's very hard to let go of.
Yeah.
And it was just both, not just so human, but
And it's very significant going into the days of awe.
right, right.
I mean, the request for forgiveness has to be very serious and really not just a. When I was in high school, I went to, some of you know, I went to an Orthodox high school. I was Orthodox as a teenager. People would go around during Elul and say, "Do you mochel me? Do you mochel me? Do you mochel me?" You know, and that mochel is the Yiddishized or the Ashkenazi pronunciation of the word for forgive. And it would become like a, you know, just would be like, "Do you mochel me?" And then you have to say yes. Do you mochel me? That's not really what's meant by asking for forgiveness. But that in high school, that's what we would do. We'd run around the hall saying, "Do you mochel me? Do you mochel me?" Ridiculous, but sounds funny now. Okay, last one, Sarah Sloan.
Well, again, echoing everybody else, welcome back and Mazel Tov. And I was interested that the picture of you vaguely reminded me of the picture of you in pearls that was used all those years ago.
Which picture? Each article used a different picture of me, so I don't know which article you saw. It was
The
really
Times.
What?
The Times.
I don't know that I saw that one. All the different articles used really different pictures of me. One used when I was Grand Marshal for the Gay Pride March with a boa and which I thought that's okay. That's a good image for the commission. You know, remember that rainbow boa that I used to wear all the time? I think we lost that in the move. That's too bad. But anyway, so somebody used that picture. So they used, I don't know which, I have to look and see.
What I wanted to say was that during was it a week that we went through Psukei de Zimra with Rabbi Rapport?
It was a week and a half. Yeah.
A week and a half. Who remembers already? I was struck by how many different ways there are to learn Psalms. Because with her, we stuck with, and it was excellent teaching, with one translation. And even though the things I've been saying all my life, I found myself those afternoons reading all the translations I have.
Oh, that warms my heart. Part of what I want to show you in this class is that there are all different ways to go at the Psalms. So we're going to continue today with Psalm 25 because I want to keep doing our numbered version. And then in September, we're going to skip to 150 and we're going to end with this class with studying the final chapter of the book of Psalms. But Rabbi Rapport and Rabbi Moskowitz, I had a lot of talks that she took, Rabbi Rapport took throughout her several times of kind of guest teaching during the course of the class. She did the Psalms of Kabbalat Shabbat, the Psalms of Hallel, the Psalms of Psukei de Zimra. So you could see groupings of Psalms as they're used in liturgy. And then Rabbi Moskowitz picked, a psalm that would be relevant for the season of the post Tisha B'Av Shabbat Nachamu period to see that Psalms can be used that way. But every way is a legitimate way of using the Psalms. And really, if you don't know what to do, if you don't know what to say, you pick up the Psalms, read through them 1 to 150, and don't even think about it. Or do what Sarah just said. Take a Psalm, you now have all these different translations, and on your own, take an hour or two to compare all the translations. It's all these different ways are the appropriate and fun ways of doing it. So we're going to continue now. We're going to do a little with Psalm 25, and that's what we're going to work on this week. And Psalm 25, for anybody who's a traditional davener, and we have a few in this crowd, will know that it's done in Tachanun, which is the daily prayer that happens. How do you explain Tachanun? It's the prayer at the end of the morning service after the Amidah, which is the prayer it's kind of a confessional prayer that's done every day. And Tachanun is not done it's done every weekday. It's never done on Shabbat. And it's never done on Yontovs because it should never be done when it's a joyous celebration. And if you've ever been in an Orthodox or traditionally conservative shul, you'll see all the people when they get up to Tachanun, they say Tachanun and they put their head down on their arm. Of course, when I was Orthodox, that would be a great opportunity for the girls in the girls section to talk, because the rabbis had their head down and they couldn't look over the mechitza and see what we were doing. So we loved Tachanun because it meant the rabbis couldn't be looking over the mechitza. By the way, as an Orthodox girl, as a high school girl, the girls felt liberated. We felt sorry for the boys because there were no rabbis in the girls section. So we were completely unsupervised. And the boys had to do exactly what if they acted out or if they weren't praying properly, they would get yelled at by the rabbis. So I just want to say that as a high school student, we felt great freedom from being around the male rabbis. And look what happened. I turned out to be a rabbi. So you see, that's some kind of, anyway. So Tachanun is said every day. Is there anybody here who's familiar with saying Tachanun? Do we have any people who have said Tachanun or know what it is? Yeah, so we've got Sarah Sloan knows it. So Sarah, and you put your head in your arm, right? You're muted. Yep, so Sarah's acting it out. That's how Tachanun is said every day.
Rabbi Bara Elman, who
Yep.
runs one of the minyanim I go to.
Yes.
Rabbi Elman teaches that Tachanun has words because the people who put the Siddur together were afraid that folks would not have the words on their own to talk directly to God.
Oh, interesting.
And she encourages us to, it's Tachanun, it's your time with God.
Thank you. So Sarah, so you know this psalm. It's if you do the traditional liturgy of Tachanun, this is a typical psalm. So let's put it up. What versions do we have? Who's helping today put things up since Harold is hiking in Colorado? And do we have somebody to read it in Hebrew and then somebody to read it in English? Do we have anybody to put it up, or are we just looking at what we have in front of us?
You want me to put it up?
Yeah, Tasha, do you have Levi's there? So this is chapter 25. And who's going to be the Hebrew reader? Ben Shafran, you want to read it? I want Hebrew readers to notice.
Yes, I'll read it. Good.
Notice if you'll notice something about the Hebrew, and then the Levi English when we can get to it. So this has 22 verses. So it's kind of, I'd say, a medium-sized psalm. There's some that are longer, a lot that are longer, and you've seen a bunch that are shorter. And let's see, are we able to get that, Tosh? Sorry, I should have warned you that we're going to do this one.
Looking for it in my email, sorry.
All right, Ben, do you have it in front of you? Do you have the Hebrew?
Yeah, I have it on my phone.
Okay. Right, so do you want to just read the Hebrew?
Sure. לדוד, אליך אדוני נפשי אשא, אלוהי בך בטחתי אל לבושה, אל יאלצו אויבי לי. גם כל קובעך לא יבושו, יבושו הבוגדים ריקם. דרכך אדוני הודיעני, אורחותיך למדני. הדרכני ועמיתך ולמדני, כי אתה אלוהי, אלוהי ישעי. אותך קיוויתי כל היום. זכור רחמך אדוני וחסדך, כי מעולם המה. חטאות נעוריי ופשעי אל תזכור, כחסדך שכר לי אתה, למען טובך אדוני. טוב וישר אדוני, על כן יורר חטאים בדרכך. ידרך אבנים במשפט, וילמד אבנים דרכו. כל אורחות אדוני חסד ואמת, לנוצרי בריתו ועדותיו. למען שמך אדוני, וסלחת לעווני, כי רב הוא. מי זה האיש ירא אדוני, יורנו בדרך יבחר. נפשו בטוב טלים, וזרעו ירש ארץ. סוד אדוני לרעיו, ובריתו להודיעם. עיני תמיד אל אדוני, כי הוא יוציא מרשת רגלי. פנה אליי וחנני, כי יחיד ואני אני. צרות לבבי הרוויחו, ממצוקותיי הוציאני. ראה עוני ועמלי, וסלחו חטאותיי. ראה אויביי כי רבו, ושנאת חמאס שנאוני. שמרה נפשי והצילני, אל אבוש כי חסיתי בך. תום וישר יצאוני, כי קיוויתך, בדי אלוהים את ישראל מכל צרותיו.
Excellent. So you could really hear the rhythm. Ben, that was a beautiful reading. And Ben, what did you notice about the Hebrew? Did you notice anything about the first letters?
It looks like it's an acrostic. No.
Sorry. The plumber's making a lot of noise. Yes, it's an acrostic. It's an imperfect acrostic. You'll notice it doesn't do every single letter. Can you notice which letters it does do and which, or I should say, which letters are missing? So you'll see it's an acrostic, but it's imperfect in that it's dropped a couple of the letters.
It drops the kuf.
Right?
It doubles the resh.
Correct. It drops one other letter. Anybody else notice it? Which letter is dropped?
The bait.
The bet. So, but there's no question that this is an acrostic. Peter Klein, do you have your hand up to read, or you just, does somebody have the Levy in English you could read? Ira, would you read the Levy in English? And if folks have the Levy in front of you, Lori sent it out. So if you have the Levy, we're looking at the Levy right now. Look at the Levy for a very specific reason. Don't be, when we're using Levy for a very specific reason. So if everybody could look at that one. And Ira, would you read the English?
Yes, hang on 1 second. Of David, Adonai, to you my life ascends. Alone, my God, upon you do I balance my trust. Allow me not to bear humiliation. Allow not my adversaries to rejoice over me. Clear from shame all who hope in you. Let all who deceive without cause be shamed. Direct me to penetrate your paths, Adonai. School me in the roads you take. Elevate my path toward your truth and school me. For you are the God of my deliverance. I wait hopefully for you all the day. Whoops. I was reading from my own copy and now it got covered up.
Okay, you see it on the screen now?
Yes.
Tasha, can you make it a little larger? Okay, but let's see if we can read that.
You have to scroll up a bit. Too much. Yeah, good. Grant me the presence of your compassion, Adonai, and your covenantal love, for they have existed since the world began. Hasten the sins of my youth and my rebelliousness away from your presence. May you hold me in your presence according to your covenantal love, for the sake of your goodness, Adonai. Infinitely good and upright is Adonai, directing sinners on the proper path. You scrolled too far.
Yeah, we're up to verse 10.
Knowing your roads reveals your covenantal love and truth, leading the faithful followers to keep your covenant and its testimonies. Lend your pardon for your name's sake, Adonai, to my sin. Lo, it is great. Men and women who hold Adonai in awe, God will instruct in the path they should choose. Night and day, they will lie down with goodness, and their seed will inherit the earth. Only to those who hold God in awe is the divine secret revealed, and God's covenant too, that they may penetrate its depths. Peering always toward Adonai are my eyes, as you bring forth my feet from the net. Quietly turn to me, show grace to me, for I am isolated and afflicted. Raging are the sorrows of my heart. Rescue me from my distress. See my affliction and my toil, and raise up forgiveness for all my sins. See my enemies, how numerous they are. Take note of the violent hatred with which they hate me. Uphold my life and liberate me. Visit me not with shame, for I have taken refuge in you. Worthiness and innocence, may they preserve me. For you are the one for whom I yearn. Zealously may you rescue Israel, O God, from all our sorrows.
Beautiful, Ira, thank you. And thank you, Tasha, and I'm sorry I didn't give you a heads up. So thank you for doing that and beautiful reading. So
Thank
if we
you.
go back to the top, so you'll notice that what Levi does, first of all, we notice he numbers the Psalms. He keeps pretty closely to the structure. And as I said, I like looking at it because we have the Hebrew and English on the same page. You'll notice, as Ben pointed out, that the Hebrew has acrostic in the Hebrew, and you can see in Levi, he bolds the Hebrew letters that form the acrostic to help you as a, does everybody see that? And in the English, Levi does the same to the English. He changes the translation sometimes, and he indicates that in his comments because he wanted to maintain in the English the sense of an acrostic. And this is a very interesting question for a translator and interpreter. Levi wants the English reader to feel a little bit the energy of an acrostic, and we'll talk about that in a second. So he does a little, sometimes the sentences are a little switched around, the translations are a little switched around in order to preserve that acrostic. So you see in the English, Levi also reflects the integrity of the Hebrew. You see how in the English there are multiple A's capitalized or bolded, I should mean. The same is true in the Hebrew, there are multiple alepphs. So you look down in the Hebrew, you see the gimel at the beginning of 3 is bolded. In the beginning of verse 4, it's a daled, and in verse 4 in the English, it's a D. So Levi's goal is to try and in the English, for the English reader to have some feel of the acrostic. There are a couple of acrostics in the Psalms. And what typically are some of the reasons that the poet would use an acrostic? So, I mean, it's true for any tradition. First and foremost, probably, is that an acrostic helps the process of memorization. It's a little bit of a memory help. And in a tradition that was largely an oral tradition, wow, that helps a lot, right? If you have that kind of tool. But not all the Psalms are acrostics. And some very famous Psalms, I think you did you do 145 with Rabbi Rapport, Ashrei? So Ashrei Yoshvei Beitecha, that's a very famous acrostic Psalm that actually has, but also, this is also, I think, missing a Vav. Let's see, am I correct? There's no Vav, okay. Vav Zion, yes. So this is also missing a Vav, so there are a couple of letters that are missing. Acrostic is a tool like any structure in a poem, like Ira showed us in writing a haiku or writing a sonnet. There's something about an external structure that forces the writer to create something that's not just totally free form, but has some structure to it. And by playing with the structure, maybe you come to something. The other thing for Jewish poetry in the Psalms is that the letters have power in Judaism. The letters have mystical power. We're told that God created the universe through the letters of the Hebrew alphabet. So there's tremendous power in the letters of the alphabet. So I'm going to stop there. I see there are a couple of questions or comments, and I'll give you some homework for tomorrow. But Lisa?
So I always wonder in my modern Western mind, why on earth create an acrostic if you're going to leave letters out? And I was thinking that maybe, it's the completeness, it's the whole sense of having sort of A to Z, even though you don't have all A to Z, the sense of just having everything, everything in the psalm.
I think that's excellent. I think that creates that structure of you're doing a journey from A to Z. Great. Ira?
Oh, sorry, that must have been when I raised my hand to read.
Did anybody else have a comment? Again, Harold's not here today, so I'm not looking at the comments. So if there's something you'd like to share, raise your hand, please. Cantor Nimi.
Yeah, there are two things that I noticed. One was just in Levy's translation that I really kind of thought was interesting or even moving, that he's very consistent with how he translates the word chesed as covenantal love. And I don't recall if he does that in his other translations.
I think he does, but I'm going to check. That's a good, I'm pretty sure he does.
There's a bit of a conversation going on in the chat about the translation of the word chesed, which maybe we can speak more on. The other thing that I really noticed was how he translates the word zechor, or the root Zayin Chaf Resh as being connected to like bringing into God's presence versus expelling from God's presence. I think it's in verse 7, but it's a little bit small for me to read on the shared screen. Let me look at it on mine. Yes, where he says like al tizkor, he says like hasten from your presence, versus like to zechorli is hold me in your presence. And I thought that since the word means remember.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Very interesting. Let's hold on to that. Betsy.
Yes, there's been some discussion in the chat, and I think it's come up before. At some point, would you talk more about the whole question of grace within a Jewish perspective? I know you have, but a lot of us are still clearly unclear with it. And it's such a Christian.
Folks, I just have to deal with the plumber a second. I'm sorry, I'll be right. Hi guys, sorry about that. So we'll pick this up tomorrow, but I want to know, is there somebody who would do a little study of the word chesed this afternoon and come in tomorrow? And somebody who would do a little study of the word gematria and what gematria is? And I'll talk about both tomorrow. But if anybody here, if you'd like to just, so Stephen, you'll take, I'm looking at the chat now. So Stephen, why don't you just look up gematria? This is just the beginning. I'll do a lot of teaching about it as well, but I just want, let's try and use these opportunities for people to do a little study. So who would like to do chesed? Because it's a very important, otherwise I'll just teach about it. Ari, is that a hand up? Excellent. So Ari's gonna do chesed and Stephen's gonna do gematria. Excellent, I'm putting that down. All right, dear friends. So happy to be back. Great to see everybody. And by the way, we have a town hall next Monday night, August 9th, about high holidays. As we watch the Delta variant, we have to figure out what we're gonna do. Anyway, lovely to see everybody, and I'll see you tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.
Bye.